Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where unfortunately we forgot to bring a sword. Because this week we watched Serenity 2005.
Written by Joss Whedon.
Directed by Joss Whedon.
And released on August 22nd, 2005 at a film festival at Edinburgh International Film Festival, and then September 30th, 2005 in the US.
I thought you were about to say and released on Joss Whedon.
On Whedonesque.com. They posted a full rip of it on Whedonesque.com.
I mean, you did say that this movie was the first HD rip uploaded to the BitTorrent network. I can't believe that's how we're starting this episode off.
Yeah, well, I can believe it because like the marketing and release and just the making of Serenity is inextricably like linked to fan sites and the internet and all of this and you know, like Comic-Con and conventions and stuff like that. Which I guess we can detail some of the making of before we jump right in.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's you know, it's pretty interesting. Like, this movie probably wouldn't have come about in an earlier era, considering how you know, the cancellation of the show, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, just bringing us full circle, you know, to the beginning of the podcast where we asked, is Joss Whedon an auteur? And here he gets to really flex his auteur muscles by writing and directing the movie.
Right, and this is actually, I wasn't fully cognizant of this while watching it, but I realized afterwards, like, wow, this was Joss Whedon's first movie as a director.
This is what got him to break out in Hollywood.
Yeah, basically.
Just in TV land.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, just kind of, I'll go into this a little more in a bit, but like, it just blows my mind how like Joss Whedon was really like, he could do no wrong, like for maybe about a decade, like from the late 90s to the late 2000s, like he was the guy.
He was the guy you went to if you wanted snappy, witty, hackneyed dialogue.
Well, he was the guy that, like, people loved him. He you know, I watched some of the behind the scenes. I watched this on Blu-ray. I didn't pirate it. Like,
well, neither did I. I watched it on Peacock.
No, I wasn't saying you did, but I was like just referring to the fact that this is also inextricably linked to the piracy scene of the mid 2000s. But like, one of the things on the Blu-ray was a behind the scenes thing at Comic-Con with like Joss Whedon and some of the actors went to Comic-Con. They didn't say which year it was. I assume it was 2003, so right after the show got canceled, and before, like, as Serenity was kind of ramping up. But like, yeah,
the way you described this, people were like worshipping the ground Joss Whedon was walking on.
Well, I mean, let's just start here, because this is kind of at the beginning of like this is sort of the genesis of Serenity. And Joss Whedon even said in this video, like, Serenity, we're kind of trying to get it off the ground at this point. So he goes to Comic-Con and like he's there with all the actors. And like, he just walks out onto stage and he's saying like, you know, I didn't really expect anything much. The show had been canceled. I assumed people didn't really care. You know, as I assumed he did say multiple times that like, he didn't want Firefly to be over. He wanted there to be something, whether it's another season or a movie or he was like cave etchings, like just something more related to Firefly.
Cave etchings?
Yeah, he said, I'm getting it off the ground, you know, no matter what. Serenity style. Like the ship, but you know, he walks out onto stage, and there's just this massive crowd, and he gets this standing ovation before he even says a word. And you know, that's the point where I think it hit him, according to what he said, and it hit me. Like, oh my god, like he's like the golden like child of that decade, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it kind of blew my mind, just, you know, kind of knowing what came after, like, you know, how he's marred his own career, right? And his fall from grace, like, you know, then Avengers came out and people were like, you know, Joss Whedon. And that sort of really, I think Avengers was really where like the Joss Whedon dialogue meme started. Right? I mean, it wasn't around before that, right? And then like all the other things that came out about him, about the harassment and all this. So. And throughout this little behind the scenes Comic-Con feature or whatever, even the actors were like effusively laying praise on Joss Whedon. They're like, all of this, the fact that we're getting a movie, the fact that Universal picked us up after we were canceled, like it's all down to Joss Whedon. It's all him.
Who else but Joss?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of the reason why maybe he's partially deified is because, in the early 2000s, it was like you couldn't turn on the TV. You couldn't turn on the TV without seeing a Joss Whedon show basically for like that entire decade. Because there was Buffy, and then there was Angel, and then there was Firefly. It was like every year you would turn the TV on and there was a Joss Whedon show on TV. And I don't think any other television creator has so intimately linked their brand with a television show. I mean, think of like today, you look at TV on today, like, I don't know, like Loki or WandaVision, these Marvel TV shows, or you look at other streaming services like Amazon, with Bosch and Goliath, and like none of these shows sell themselves, even advertise themselves like based on who made the show, and that's like, that was something that maybe perhaps is not entirely unique to Joss Whedon, but he definitely did it more than anybody else has done before or since, I think.
Yeah, except maybe like David Lynch or something like that. But like, yeah, you're right. And we have talked about this before where it's like, you're right, completely. It's like, Joss Whedon is one of the few people who like you link their name to a show like in an auteur fashion.
Yeah, I mean, him and like Patrick McGoohan,
Yeah.
But like, how many people even know who Patrick McGoohan is anymore? Nowadays.
Yeah. He was also one of the first to like really tap into this sort of like fan culture / internet culture thing. With like him posting to the Whedon-esque blog, which is like a fan blog, but we just found out, but he posted to it. And then like, do you know what the Session 416 thing is for the market that they created for the marketing of Serenity?
I don't actually.
Okay, so they included this on the Blu-ray, and I didn't watch the full thing. I watched a little bit of it. It's basically a series of like interviews with River that are, I believe they're basically supposed to be like her interviews for how she got into the government school that performed the experiments on her. And they're shot, it's like in black and white. It sort of is done to look like security cam footage, kind of. And these were created, apparently, I just read this on Wikipedia, so this is off of what they're saying, wherever they got it from, is Universal was like, hey, we need some like viral marketing for this movie. And I think maybe executives from Universal, perhaps realizing that Joss Whedon, was sort of very tapped into what people were saying online and, was very connected to fans and conventions and all of this stuff in a way that a lot of creators weren't at that time. Now is a totally different story, but like at the time, it was kind of, I think, a rare thing, right?
I mean, Joss Whedon was very forward thinking in that matter.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. So they created these sort of like this like, I don't know, this guerrilla like viral marketing thing for the movie. They were posted on like various video sites and like forums. This is when the internet was far less, centralized as well. There's no YouTube, there's no social media. So these things were just posted, like, I guess, where they felt the fans were gathering at the time, which was like, I guess, fan sites and just fan forums.
Whedonesque.org or com.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
Yep. So, and they included them on the Blu-ray. So there's a bunch of different sessions, with Summer Glau playing River and sort of answering a series of questions and stuff like this. So.
Clearly didn't work.
Yeah, well, clearly
didn't work as well as they were hoping it would.
No, the movie
bombed.
The movie made $40 million on a $39 million budget, and that's another thing too. It was so this was so weird. So another thing they included on the Blu-ray was Joss Whedon's message to like fans of Firefly, and it started like, I don't use this word too often because I think it's rather meaningless, but like, yeah, it was kind of cringeworthy, where it's like there's basically two distinct halves of this message. It was only about 3 or 4 minutes long. The first half was like, it's just Joss Whedon sitting in kind of a room, and he goes like, so hey, fans of Firefly, like, Serenity it's almost done. And I just wanted to thank you. It's all on you that we've gotten this off the ground. Just a massive fan reception to the show, despite the fact that it was canceled. We've done an amazing thing here. We've basically done the impossible. We stood up against the odds. We're kind of like Mal and crew. And I'm just like, really, like it's a damn movie. Like you didn't do something. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's society shaking, Keon. It completely upends everything we thought about TV and movie society. I feel like I'm quoting
he's talking like you just like. I couldn't stop thinking like while I was watching this message, like he's speaking as if you just like, I don't know, joined Doctors Without Borders and like started saving people's lives or something. Like no, you just liked a show enough to get a movie made out of it.
It's not even like
he goes on.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say like his point about this. I don't know if he makes the point that this has never been done before, but that's also like just false, I guess. I mean, throw back to Star Trek getting canceled and letter writing campaign bringing it back, and then it becoming so popular they made a sequel series later on, the much better, much more popular sequel series.
Yeah, no, he doesn't say it was the first time. He does say it's a rare thing, which I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right about that, and that's a comparison that I can't believe we haven't drawn until now. Is that like Firefly kind of mirrors Star Trek in that way, and they're both sci-fi as well. So,
mm-hmm.
And they both have like that space western vibe. Star Trek less so, but like still, that was kind of how it was made.
Yeah, it was Wagon Train to the Stars. I think I did mention that on recording very early in this season.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the second half of this message from Joss Whedon goes on to say, like, if you're a fan of Firefly and you're looking forward to Serenity, tell people about this movie. Get online and start talking about it. Market it for free for us because we know it's going to bomb. He doesn't say that last part.
I assume he doesn't say that.
But he's basically calling fans to kind of get, start hyping up this movie. And he says he's forward thinking, and that is 100% true. Is like, in a way, today you could get things like official hashtags, like, share this on social media, get people talking about it. And it's just as cringeworthy today as it was back then. Probably even more so, because at this point, there's no sort of centralized way to do this. He just appears and he's like, hey, just get online wherever you talk to people online. If you go on forums, share it there, and this type of thing. So, yeah, inextricably linked.
Inextricably linked. Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't own the Blu-ray, so I didn't watch any of the behind-the-scenes features. I guess I could have looked to see if anybody has conveniently pirate uploaded them to YouTube.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
or the best video platform, Vimeo.
I know, Vimeo, yeah. Vimeo does come through occasionally, Maybe even in a bigger way than the real unsung hero of the internet, Daily Motion.
Hey, Daily Motion has been the unsung hero of this podcast before.
Yeah, that it has in recent years, actually, within like maybe the past year or two. Still trucking Daily Motion. Hell yeah. I have a feeling like when the internet goes down, like when society collapses, like Daily Motion will somehow survive. Like it'll outlive the internet itself.
I mean, Live Leak has gone down, so I don't know. Live Leak feels like something that should have lasted forever too.
Well, don't forget the maybe not as true, but still true unsung hero, VO. Remember them? Do you know what that is?
These deep cuts. These deep cuts. Just loving these deep cut references that you're busting out on the show here to old websites.
Yeah.
I guess we should actually talk about Serenity the movie, though.
Yeah, we should.
So, look, before we even go in to this, I want to give a little bit of my personal background here. I want to reiterate. At the very beginning of the season, I mentioned how I had only seen Serenity and Serenity, although in hindsight, I actually think I had also seen The Train Job, so I think I watched Serenity, The Train Job, Serenity. And I just want to say that made this movie like really weird to watch, because if you watch this movie, you get like a heavy impression that a lot of characters in this movie are like really big players in the TV show, when in actuality, you've like never seen them before. I'm looking at you, Mr. Universe. When I watched this movie the first time, I thought like, okay, so Mr. Universe is like a character who was like prominent on the TV show, right? Like he's someone they interact with multiple times, right? Like, but no, having watched the show now, like, no, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, the movie does kind of give Mr. Universe's death equal weight with Bosch's in books, in a way, with his grave showing up next to theirs.
He was just an important character to the Serenity crew, all right.
He was kind of like that guy who Saffron married, who Mal had seen before, but we hadn't seen him before, right?
Oh yeah. What was that guy's name?
I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess giving a little bit of my own personal background with this movie, like the show, I'd seen it once before. I'd watched it. I watched the show and then I watched the movie afterwards, kind of how you're supposed to, I guess. This is one of the first movies.
Good job. You did it the correct way.
Yeah, this is one of the first movies that I bought on Blu-ray. This is when I was really like getting into starting collecting. Like, I'm not a big collector anyway, but like I have a sizable DVD Blu-ray collection. So this was one of the first.
Huh? Why?
I don't know. Honestly, I can't remember. It was like 7 years ago. I didn't own the show.
Huh.
Now I do. But I didn't own the show at the time.
Maybe you knew in the future that you would record this podcast on the show and wanted to be prepared for that.
Yeah, maybe.
For some reason.
Maybe it was like all leading up to this or something.
Who knows? Who knows? Wow, I'm even making that reference not on the podcast it originated on. Hell yeah.
Check out Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. The podcast that originated on. Well, so Serenity.
So the movie opens with a cunning wink and nod at the audience. It opens with the same voiceover it's been opening with on the TV show. But not exactly. It's slightly expanded, a slightly more polished version of Book's version of the opening voiceover. And then it's a female voice giving it, and you're like, what is this? And then you find out it's a teacher.
But it also, I think, opens with like a subtle nod to like, hey, this is Universal now and not Fox. Like, Fox canceled us. Universal picked us up, right? Where it's like it goes from the Universal Globe intro sequence thing to showing, Earth that was, right? It's sort of it's uninhabitable and you see the ships leaving, right? It has that transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, like you said, it's a teacher, and you quickly realize that this is River's childhood. She's in sort of a class with a few other kids.
Yeah, in hindsight, this is right now. This is a story within a story within a story. Although you don't realize that till 10 minutes from now, because this scene we're seeing. So we see this scene. The teacher kind of chastises River because River's like, some people eat each other, and the teacher's like, well, only Reavers are cannibals. And then it kind of like zooms out in scope to reveal that this is like a dream / memory that River's having while captured in Alliance stronghold.
Right. She says she doesn't want to lay...
And then, just to jump ahead.
Yeah, right.
Just a second to explain the story within a story. This is revealed to then be a hologram being watched by someone.
Yeah. So River says she doesn't want to lie down. Like the rest of the kids are told to lie down. She's like, no, I don't want to. So the teacher like walks up to her, stabs her in the forehead, and that's when you find out that this is sort of a recollection. Because it cuts to like her getting...
just drives that knife.
Yeah. It cuts to her getting like something injected into her forehead as she's being experimented on.
Yes.
A second or two later, you realize, like, oh, this is Simon rescuing River from the facility. Because he's there, he's posing as sort of an inspector. He's questioning the head guy there, the sort of medical lead or whatever.
Yeah, and the guy's like, top minds of the Alliance have seen her and approved of her progress. He also, like, I don't know, Joss Whedon mildly retconning the show in a way that I want to talk about later, but in this scene, the Doctor directly mentions to Simon that River is psychic and that she has psychic abilities, which in the TV show, I guess it's never explicitly stated that Simon doesn't know that she's psychic, but, if you want to take it that far, it's kind of convenient that he just keeps his mouth shut when Mal is like, I think she's psychic.
I think he, looking back on the show, I think you can kind of, he had probably an inkling that she was empathic in some way, compounded also by the fact that midway through the season, they find out that her amygdala was altered / removed or whatever that was. And then sort of at the end of the show is them kind of saying like, okay, this is for real. She's like, she can read minds type thing. So yeah, maybe he just either didn't get a heart or, I don't know. I didn't really care, to be honest. I'm fine with, things of this nature, whether you want to call this a retcon or whatever.
It was just the first thing in this movie that made this whole movie feel like, to me, like not even a continuation of the TV show, but just like almost like a sidestep universe of the same characters, but everyone just being slightly different and being like, this is how everything could have played out.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I think for the better. Honestly, when sequels are like that, I typically say that it's for the better. Obviously, you can go to a certain degree where it's like it doesn't even feel like it's a real sequel, or it just feels like something completely different. But like, I don't know. Usually, I think, telling the story that you want to tell is more important than adhering to every single little minute detail of the original one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Maybe. So yeah, Simon starts rescuing her. It's like a whole action movie sequence. Pan out to reveal that this is like a holographic recording of what actually happened, being watched by a man, dressed very ominously in some sort of, I don't even know, facility thing. I guess it's supposed to be the same facility as where River was being held. I guess it's supposed to be the same the same facility. I guess it's just never like explicitly confirmed that that's the case.
He's watching this thing alongside the Doctor who failed to keep River out of Simon's hands. Who, the lead doctor that Simon was talking to, who he knocked out. And
Well, the doctor comes in and he's like, "Hey, you're not allowed to be in here like without supervision." And then the guy, the operative, which I think in the credits his name is the operative, says, "Well, I like to watch these things without bias."
Yeah, so he's been sent to kind of deal with River. And he realizes that like the doctor let it slip that like, you know, top members of the Alliance knew about this thing, and he's like, well, you said this, and it's like she's a psychic, like you just said it, like,
which means she stole information. He's like, well, she never indicated that she stole anything, and it's like, that's the weakest possible defense. Like, why would she ever indicate that she knew anything, that she had stolen information? Like,
well, anyway, the guy's like, you know, in times long past, people who had, you know, committed grave missteps,
grave errors of this magnitude,
right, would fall on their sword, right? And this is sort of a biblical thing, right? You can see this happen in the Bible multiple times, I think, at least once.
There's a lot of like biblical things in this, and like things about faith and belief,
right?
And so this is just the first.
Yeah. The guy says, well, unfortunately, I didn't bring my sword today, and you just see the guy, the operative, pull out like a katana type thing.
Well, fortunately, I did.
Mm-hmm. So he falls on his sword there. He paralyzes him, and
he paralyzes the guy, and the guy falls forward on the sword in this scene where the operative is talking with the secretary, I guess, like just making full eye contact with the secretary, like, I need you to get me information, everything about River. And then the guy falls on his sword, and the operative goes, there's no shame in this. It's a very honorable death.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Serenity has a sick new logo. They painted it on the side of the ship, and Inara actually renews that coat of paint at the end of the movie.
Yeah, because they painted over it.
Oh, yeah, they did. Well, they're about to crash.
Bumming around.
Yeah, they're
about to crash.
Business as usual.
To just smash into the planet. Luckily for us, Wash saves the day.
And then, so apparently, now that Mal knows River is psychic, he wants her to go on jobs with them.
Well, I just want to mention this whole scene is shot, and I think this is another, like, I don't know if it's a, like, screw you, Fox, you dropped us, or like, look at how much we can do on a movie budget. But you had mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe it was, that the Serenity set was built. Each of the 2 floors was built as one contiguous set, mm-hmm. but they weren't joined. But this whole scene, from the cockpit all the way to the cargo bay, and I don't know if you noticed this because it's kind of subtle, but the whole thing is just one continuous shot, kind of showing that this entire set is now one unit, mm-hmm. all the way from the cockpit to the cargo hold.
Yeah, I did kind of notice that. I wasn't sure.
I just thought it was really cool. It was kind of a subtle way to show that they had built this whole thing out.
Yeah, and it does look, they did a good job making it look pretty much exactly like it did on the show.
Except higher budget. The CG for Serenity is like so much better. Which is not a surprise, nor is it a knock on the TV show, but like it just looks so much better.
Yeah, they had like one of the behind the scenes features, like just talked about how many like digital effects companies were working on this movie, and it was like a lot.
Hundreds.
I think it was like 5.
Thousands.
Thousands of companies, tens of thousands of people. No.
It's like an MLM. Every single special effects person has their own, quote, company, unquote.
Mm-hmm. Well, so they're going to pull this job, It's basically a bank robbery. River's coming along. Simon doesn't want her to, obviously. But Mal's not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, Mal's like, if she's going to be on my ship, she's going to do what I say.
Yeah, and if any serious harm comes to her, he'll be very choked up about it.
He might even cry.
So they use the mule, which is something we've never seen before, but it's basically sort of a janky-looking hovercraft thing. In the words of the ineffable...
Star Wars hovercraft.
Yeah, in the words of the ineffable Joss Whedon, if you're going to make a sci-fi movie, for God's sake, at least have a hovercraft chasing.
Wow. I don't think I've disagreed with something that Joss Whedon has said more than that.
Just spitting on like 99% of sci-fi.
Yeah. Wow.
But not Star
Joss.
Wars.
Kind of arrogant of you there.
Actually, does Star Wars even have a hovercraft chase in it? Now that I think about it, I don't like. Does it?
Clone Wars does. Clone Wars does.
Clone Wars,
remember
like
Obi-Wan
the animated,
and Anakin chase.
The animated Clone Wars.
No, the movie. Sorry,
Attack of
the Clones. Sorry, yeah, when Obi-Wan and Anakin are chasing the assassin who tried to kill Padme.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a hover car. I don't count that.
Okay, what? What?
Well, no, it's like when you think of hovercrafts in the same vein in Star Wars, you think of like the land speeders, right?
Yeah, I guess, but like, it's basically the same thing.
I don't know. And it's in a high-rise city. You know, it's on the planet Coruscant. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Well, fine. You know, how about Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi? No, it was in 6 when they're on Endor and they're chasing. You know, the stormtroopers are chasing them on those speeder
bikes.
No, what? Okay, all right. How about in Episode 9? You know, Rise of Skywalker, when they're chasing those stormtroopers, or the stormtroopers are chasing them on that Tatooine-esque planet.
Jakku.
And then they go flying. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah.
I had to really dig deep into my my Star Wars memories to pull those out.
Anyway, they take the mule. The mule looks pretty cool, actually. I guess that's what happens when you now have a movie budget, even though the budget for this movie is not particularly high for what it was, for what the movie is, and you know what it's trying to do, I guess. But it looks cool. Kind of wish we had seen the mule in the show.
Well, I don't think they had any. I don't think they had the budget to do that.
No. So they go out to the town, and Zoe explains how the bank is involved in some sort of scheme, keeping the money away from the hands of the honest people and into the pockets, funneling into the pockets of people who don't deserve it, type thing. Justifying why they're doing this.
Yeah, and they also say that like the Alliance would never come looking for this backwater bank. Basically, would never come looking for stolen payrolls from this bank.
Mm-hmm. So they storm in, and we kind of get like the more sinister Mal from early in the show. I think.
Yeah, we do. Mal's a little ruthless in this.
Yeah, in a way, like this entire sequence, him wanting River to go along, and the ruthlessness of his behavior as they rob the bank, like it does, I think, speak more to, you know, just adds to the fact that this feels like, you know, a sequel. Like one timeline to the right or something like that.
Yeah, it's it almost feels like maybe even it's just a direct sequel to Serenity, the episode, and ignoring everything else. Actually,
Yeah, it could. I was actually thinking, as I was starting to watch the movie, like I was thinking, okay, this came to theaters. It was a theatrical movie. It wasn't like direct to video or anything like that. It's just called Serenity. There's no indication in its title that it is like, it's not Serenity like a Firefly movie or something like that, or like Firefly the movie Serenity. It's just Serenity. So like, what I wonder what the people who went into this not knowing of Firefly or not having watched it like thought. And frankly, like given the setup, I think it does like a pretty good job setting up the world and the characters and all of this. Because we didn't mention, but as Mal is walking through the ship in that scene where you get the contiguous shot of the entire set, they're setting everything up. They set up that Zoe and Wash are married. They set up who most of the characters are and what they're doing.
Yeah, it does work very well, I think. It does work pretty well if you don't know anything about the show. I mean, and I think that was probably part of, when they were writing it, that was probably something that they had, that was a consideration they had in mind. They were like, there are going to be people who watch this who have never seen the show, and we need some of that background information to be in the movie as well.
Mm-hmm. Later on, when it gets to like, going to Haven and meeting up with Book and Inara again, it does kind of border on like, if you haven't seen the show, this isn't really going to hit as hard or make sense to you. But I do think just coming out of both Firefly and Serenity, it's like Joss Whedon is, for all his faults, I guess as a writer and as a person, he's very adept at doing that type of thing. He did it for the Train Job. He's doing it again here, where it's a very succinct way of kind of setting up everything.
Yeah, he's great at setting everything up. Can he follow through, though? Questions abound.
Yes.
Well, all right then.
Anyway, they're in the middle of this job, and Reavers attack.
Yeah.
Another thing
nice of the movie to make the Reavers relevant again.
I know, yeah, they kind of faded off into the background in the show. I think something they also set up, maybe a little subtly, is like they're on one of the outer planets, and the outer planets are near like the Reaver belt thing, like the area where all the Reavers are, out on like the outer edge of the galaxy, or the solar system, or whatever, the verse, whatever this is, wherever they are.
The verse. It's the verse. It's the verse.
So Reavers attack. Mal and crew escape after telling the people in the bank to take shelter in the vault. And again, another instance of the more ruthless, sinister Mal. A guy runs out and he's like, "Please take me with you. Like, I'm not going to make it. Like, I just want to come with you guys." And he hops on the mule. I think Mal like kicks him off. Right? He gets grabbed by Reavers, and then Mal shoots him. So sort of a mercy killing, but it's still at Mal's hands because he kicked him off the damn mule.
There's blood on your hands, Mal. Mal does, though, he does give them information. He does give the guy they're stealing from, who's actually in on the job, we should mention, kind of a method to save everybody, which is to put everybody in the bank vault and lock it.
Yeah. What was he in on the job, or was that just like sort of a funny little, thing of like, all right, we're doing this, and he's like, okay, fine, like I don't want to die or anything, so you're doing it. I guess it could be either.
Well, they said something like, "Oh, we'll shoot you in the arms" or something, so that you're scruffed up a little bit. That kind of to me was like, okay, well, they, he was in on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I just didn't know if he was in on it to begin with, or if he was just going along with them because that's just what he was doing. Doesn't really matter. They're fleeing from the Reavers. The mule is obviously not as fast as their ship, so they're having a very hard time of it. And the Reavers are pursuing them relentlessly over the sort of desert. Jane gets a harpoon through the leg. Just kind of
The
walks
whole
it
crew
off
takes
later.
some serious damage in this movie.
I know, and he just kind of walks it off later on. Like, damn.
But they're not gonna make it to Serenity before the Reavers catch up to them. But not to worry, because Wash brings Serenity to them instead.
Mm-hmm.
And they escape. And Simon basically yells at Mal for putting River in danger, and he's like, "We didn't know the Reavers were coming." Anyway, he kicks Simon and River off the ship.
Yeah, I think
At the next stop.
Simon, like, he just punches Mal in the face, right?
Yeah, he just decks him in the face as soon as he comes on the ship, and Mal's like, "All right, you're off."
Speaking of Simon, I forgot to mention at the beginning, just the fact that Simon rescued River in the way he did, in the way that was depicted, like, just further proves that he's way better at the Serenity cruise jobs than they are. Like, he did this by himself. Well, not fully by himself, but, like, he infiltrated by himself, pulled it off basically by himself. Yeah.
Well, he had some help.
Yeah, he obviously he had help, yeah. Anyway, yeah, they Simon and River leave. They get taken to, a Coruscant-like planet, sort of a city that you kind of imagine is always it's always night there or something like this. And this is also where I don't really know what this was. They either were fulfilling the job that they pulled off at the beginning, or they were getting a new job from Fanti and Mingo.
I think it was both.
Yeah.
I think it was both. I think they were fulfilling the old job and getting a new job.
It was both, actually, because Mal kicks the sack of presumably cash to them underneath the table. But yeah, so they go to this bar. They meet Fanti and Mingo, who are skeptical.
Who we've never met
we've
before.
Never met before, but they're sort of...
And we'll never see again.
Yeah, you get the idea that they're sort of just, I don't know, people who engage in criminal activity, shady businessmen. They're skeptical about Mal's ability to continue doing what he's doing, and frankly skeptical about how he's even done it, what he's done so far. Until River shows up.
River kind of wanders into the eating court, I guess.
I think it's just a bar.
And
I don't know.
She sees like some sort of cartoon on the TV, and it triggers something in her, and she starts just beating people up, including Jane, who runs up to try to stop her, and he just gets freaking decked in the face and goes down.
Yeah, I think she kills one person in this sequence. Like, everyone makes it out alive except the one person that she shoots.
Rip.
Sucks to be him.
Yeah, sucks to be him, I guess. He's not the first person River's killed, not the last person River's gonna kill.
Anyway, I think they then take Simon and River back onto the ship after this.
Well, they can't. Yeah. I was gonna say they kind of have to, but they don't have to actually. But Mal feels obligated to, and he has a crisis of faith about this later on. He's like, "What? Why did I do that?"
Well, Simon tells them that River is responsive to subliminal messaging that will activate. When it activates, it will cause her to go into this berserk state that they just witnessed. He has a safe word to calm her down, which he uses in the bar. But yeah, it just really puts the rest of the show into perspective, I think, where it's like, I think Mal even says, like, she was a ticking time bomb this whole time. We never knew.
Yeah, he kind of rightfully chews Simon out for the fact that she could have just gone, she could have just gone into this rage state and killed everybody on the ship without them knowing. And that would have been nice to know when they took them on board.
She did once. I think when she tried to, she wasn't, like, completely enraged, but she tried to kill Jane out of nowhere, if you remember, and that wasn't really, it wasn't prompted and it wasn't followed up on with anything. It was just an out of nowhere attack on Jane. So this is kind of what that was, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway.
So yeah, somebody says, they're gonna. So I think Simon says like, we'll leave, like you all want us to leave, and I think Zoe says like, nobody's saying that, and then Jane's like, I want him gone. She's like, okay, nobody but Jane is saying that.
Yeah, I think the Wash says that. But what they, I guess, come to a conclusion on is they just put them in the holding cells.
Well, they just put River in the holding cell, I think. I don't think they put Simon in the holding cell. I think River's actually in there right now because she's passed out, and they're while they're having this conversation, Simon keeps asking Mal, like, can I go see her? And Mal's like, we're not done here.
Because first they need to talk to Mr. Universe.
Everybody's favorite Firefly character.
Oh, right. Actually, just looking at my notes before that, Simon does go have a conversation with River. It's a very cryptic one, as conversations with River tend to be. But she does mention Miranda.
No, don't they find out about Miranda from the replay of the video footage from the... Because she says it right before she goes attack mode. She says Miranda.
So yeah, she says it in the bar.
Yeah.
But she says it again to Simon.
Does she? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There was even an extended... There's a deleted part of this scene where they actually have a full-on conversation about it. It was cut out in the movie, though, but he does say it. She does say it.
All right. Yeah. Sure.
Well, anyway, yeah, then they go see Mr. Universe, who this movie, again, for some reason, puts his death at the end of the movie on equal weight with the Book and Wash.
Because we've all known about him the whole show, right? We love Mr. Universe.
Mr. Universe is sort of like this hacker stereotype.
Yeah, he has access to like every television movie feed in the entire universe.
Can't stop the signal, man. That was one of the viral marketing online things that they did, was can't stop the signal. I believe it was even a website they created. But I'd have to dig into like archived stuff to know.
Can't stop
it sucks
the
that
signal.
It sucks that you need archives to access like a lot of this stuff. It wasn't that long ago. It was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, well, a lot of the sites have gone down. They're not relevant anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk to Mr. Universe, and the reason why is they want to see the video footage of River. Well, they want to know the fallout, actually. They want to know if there are people who know. You know, if there are people who were coming for them because of this. And he's like, well, they didn't broadcast this on any network at all. I had to actually go directly to the source and get the security footage to be able to see this. So they're like, well, that's either really good or really bad for us.
Meanwhile, the operative has made contact with Inara. I'll just touch on this now, but we can talk more about it later when we go into the deleted scenes. Much like in the actual show, there is an entirely cut, like, basically storyline detailing Mal's background in the Battle of Serenity. And they created a scene that was eventually cut from the movie where the operative goes into this background, and this is how he finds Inara. In the movie, it seems somewhat random. Like, he just kind of searches and he finds Inara, and he's like, okay, this is their weak. You know, this is Inara's Mal's weakness because of the whole will they won't they relationship that they have. But the deleted scene details him finding her, and I believe the reason it was cut is because they cut the backstory and the detailing of the Battle of Serenity, but it was all wrapped up in that. If that makes sense. It
Yeah.
actually works better when it comes out of nowhere. So, hey.
Yeah, well, Mal gets a call from Inara, and the whole crew is watching. The whole crew is watching.
Right.
And anyway, he comes into the cockpit and he's like, "Yeah, so Inara wants us to come over, and it's definitely a trap." And then I think Kaylee makes a comment that gives away that they were listening in. He's like, "You were all watching, weren't you?"
Mm-hmm. And the reason he says it's a trap, someone I forget who, someone's like, how do we know it's a trap though? And he's like, did you see me and Inara get into a fight? And they're like, no. And he's like, it's a trap. one of the outtakes, like the bloopers, which, let's just be clear, half of the bloopers at least half of the ones they put on the Blu-ray for this movie are just Nathan Fillion either intentionally or unintentionally ruining scenes.
Thanks, Nathan.
In one of them, like, whoever it was, they deliver that line, like, how do we know it's a trap? And he just yells trap at the top of his lungs and walks away.
Right, you thought you were going to say he makes an Admiral Akbar reference. It's a trap!
Nathan Fillion, I didn't realize until now, but he does seem like sort of a clown on set.
Yeah, in hindsight, that makes sense. That makes sense. I don't know.
I know exactly what you're saying. Like, once you know that, you're like, okay, that makes total sense. I think, did we skip when they go to meet Book? I think that's before they talk to Inara.
Is it?
I think so, isn't it? They go to Haven. They set up Haven so that it can be destroyed later on.
It might be before they get the message from... Actually, I think you're right. I think they get the message from Inara while they're on Haven.
Yeah, I think they go to Haven because they need some place to hide out for a while. And this is where Shepherd Book has effed off.
Been camping out.
Yeah.
He's got a band now.
I know, we knew Inara freaking left. We didn't know Shepherd Book left the crew. Damn.
He had to go on and do his shepherdly duties. He had to go and be a shepherd. He had to go do what he was actually supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, Haven it seems like it's sort of this, I don't know, like hippie community almost, or just a community that lives outside of the general jurisdiction of the Alliance and just kind of is a good, is a good community, I guess. A safe haven, if you will.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, then they go to Inara. Mal sneaks in dressed as I don't know. I think she's at some sort of companion school.
Yeah. So this was another thing that was cut. She is at a companion school as an instructor. They cut that out. Well, I guess we can't say that she is because it was cut out. You have to go by what's in the final movie. But according to a deleted scene, yes. Oh, we should also mention that Shepherd Book talks about belief as well. Kind of, putting him on the opposite end of, or relating him in some way that we don't know yet to the operative.
Yeah, he asks Mal what he believes, and Mal's like, I don't believe any of that like book stuff. And he's like, I'm not talking about religion, Mal. I'm talking about what do you believe.
Yep.
Because Mal is lamenting to Shepherd Book that he didn't need to take River and Simon back on, and that by doing so, he's basically invited like a world of trouble on the ship.
Mm-hmm. So I think Shepherd Book is then getting at like he actually does have like a belief. He does at least about what's right and wrong with regard to Simon and River. I think that's what he's getting at. I don't know. Seems to be the case.
I think so.
Or I guess he's talking about like, I think Mal has a line in this movie. I forget where it is, but he says like, you know, after the war, like, this is just kind of how things are. I think it's that when they're robbing the bank, it's like, so this is what you guys have come to, like the browncoats have come to, being bank robbers. And he's like, well, the war's over. There's nothing governing anything now, besides the Alliance, I guess. But I guess Shepard Book's lines indicate that like he actually does have more deep-seated beliefs than that he isn't willing to go against, even if he doesn't realize it himself.
They make reference to Shepard Book being a criminal mastermind again.
Oh, do they?
Because he says I know a lot about your world or something, and Mal says, yeah, one day you're gonna have to explain just how you know so much about what we do.
Haha, nope. Both because there's no season 2 or another movie, and because Shepard Book dies.
Shepard Book is the first casualty in the movie.
Of the main crew, right?
Of the people we care about.
Yeah.
Sorry, random guy in the bar who died. You were never introduced at all.
Yeah, sorry, Wash. Shepard Book and Mr. Universe are really the ones we care about.
Yeah. This movie has 2 deaths that are impactful. Mr. Universe and Shepard Book. Sorry, Wash. No, but Mal is talking with Inara, and the operative comes in, and the operative's like, look, I'll let you go free, or I won't hunt you down and kill you if you just give me River. And Mal's like, no. They fight. Yeah,
another instance of the more take no prisoners Mal is like, as soon as the guy says he's unarmed, the operative that is, Mal's just like, good. Pulls out his gun and shoots him in the chest.
And then he's like, but I'm not dumb enough not to wear armor.
Right.
Come on, Mal. Come on, Mal. Like, come on, Mal.
He uses a flash grenade thing to escape with Inara. And then they go.
Well, it's actually pretty, like, it's pretty funny because the operative says something like, what does he say? Like,
what does he say? Flashbang?
No, he says something like, this isn't something, like, oh, this isn't mercy or something, and then Inara says, like, well, that's not incense, and then the flashbang goes off.
Yeah.
Because during this whole scene, she's like lighting something, behind Mal and the operative's backs. And so there's this scene where like the operative says something like, well, this isn't mercy or something, and she says, and that's not incense. And then the flashbang goes off.
Another funny line, just to point it out, why not, is like the operative goes, you'll never make me angry, Mal. And Inara's like, please, just spend an hour with him.
Please.
But they escape. It's a whole big chase scene. A whole big chase scene that was actually shaved off a bit because there was more to it that was deleted.
Yeah. The operative is like, we can find like your transponder signal and we can just blow it out of the sky. And Mal's like, yeah, you might want to say your Hail Marys before you do that, and chucks the transponder to him, and he's like, dang. Mm-hmm.
And they actually do release some decoys when they finally take off in Serenity. I was going to touch on it at the end, but why not just touch on it here since we're already in the scene. Part of this scene was cut, and it showed Mal and Inara stealthily like escaping to the shuttle. Part of that is actually in the movie, but part of it was taken out. And it's kind of, how they do it is kind of funny. So like Mal throws something, I don't know what it is. It's something, it looks like a grenade because there's some guards guarding the shuttle. So he tosses this thing that looks like a grenade, and they're like, oh my gosh, a grenade, like, get down type thing. So they all like duck for cover, and him and Inara just like dash into the shuttle and leave.
Yeah, so they get back to the ship and they discover/find out that Miranda was a planet deep in Reaver territory. Allegedly, according to the Alliance archives, Miranda was like a terraforming failure, so like they tried to terraform the planet and it didn't work, and that's why nobody lives there, or it's not like in the records or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided to go make a pit stop back at Haven to check in on Shepherd Book before going to possibly Miranda through Reaver territory. Basically, none of them want to go through Reaver territory, which is why they go to Haven instead, because they're like, it's suicide to go through Reaver territory. And, lo and behold, turns out it's suicide to go back to Haven too.
Right. So the operative has enacted this campaign to make it so that Mal and crew have nowhere to go. Haven has been part of that and has been destroyed. Shepherd Book has been killed and is actually dying when they show up.
Yeah, and Mal says, like, how did they know we were coming here? Or I think it's Zoe who asks that, and Mal who says, well, there's no ships waiting, so they didn't know we were coming here. And then Zoe goes, oh shit. And she calls back to Wash, and she's like, check every person who's ever sheltered us. And they see like dozens of video feeds of dead people.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the operative just like found anybody who was ever associated with Mal and killed them, basically.
Yeah. Shepherd Book is dying. He has a heart-to-heart with Mal, and he says, find something to believe, Mal. Doesn't matter what it is. Just find it and believe in it.
And Mal's like, I believe you're going to live. And
Not
Shepherd
that.
Book is like, well, yeah, about that. I'm dying for your sins, Mal. I mean, he doesn't say that, but in a way, that's what's happening here,
Yep. So Mal then goes off the deep end, decides to disguise Serenity as a Reaver ship, using some of the dead bodies on Haven, because
Kaylee is like, we can't do this. These are our friends. And Mal's like, if we stay here, we'll die.
Mm-hmm.
If we stay here, we'll end up like them.
Yeah, because we didn't mention it. I forget if they mentioned this in the show or if they said it in this movie earlier on, but the Reavers, like, put dead bodies on the outsides of their ships.
Yeah. They decorate their ships with the bodies of their enemies.
Yep. So they kind of give Serenity a new coat of paint, new paint job, wrap it in some dead bodies and like what seems to be like barbed wire or something like that.
Yeah, they attach a bunch of like pieces of the ships that have broken off or been destroyed on Haven to their ship to basically make it look more menacing. And then they start just kind of slinking through Reaver space to go to Miranda.
And it works. There's a tense moment where like the Reavers seem to be onto them. But it works.
But it's fine.
They get to Miranda, and surprisingly, everything's fine. There's nothing really wrong there, and they all just go home. The end.
They land on Miranda, and they end up at Diamond Ranch High School. Wow, so weird. So weird that this Pomona High School is just on Miranda.
I know, it must be like a sister school or something like that. Well, okay, so this high school apparently has been used. We mentioned this on a previous episode, actually, but this high school has been used in, or maybe we said it off recording, I don't know. But this is Diamond Ranch High School. It's been used in other sci-fi movies. It's appeared, I'm just reading off of Wikipedia here. It's appeared in movies such as The Cell, Orange County, I guess because it's in Southern California, Serenity, Live Free or Die Hard, The Thinning, probably more as well. It has a very futuristic like look to it. Wikipedia calls it an expressionist modern style.
I mean, okay, yeah, I'm not like an architectural expert, so I just kind of have to take Wikipedia's word on this one. I just have to take its word that it is what it says it is.
It looks cool. Like that's probably why it's been used in so many different movies. It looks very futuristic.
Well, it serves its purpose here, where it's this like futuristic colony. There are skeletons everywhere. I think Zoe mentions that there's no gunshot wounds on anybody, so Mal and her are thinking maybe they were poisoned. And then they see through the window a bunch of bodies just lying on the ground, dead, with no apparent cause. And then I think Kaylee says something like, "It looks like they just lay down to die."
Right, like they just gave up the will to live, sat down and died. Which they find out is pretty much exactly what happened, because they go into this like archive room and watch some video footage of a woman explaining the situation.
Yes, this is renowned actress Sarah Paulson in her like 2-minute cameo scene in this movie.
I see.
Yeah, the title sequence is like, oh, Sarah Paulson's in this, and I'm like, man, I wonder who she plays. Turns out it's this character who only appears in a recording for like 2 minutes. Basically, this person, this is like a doctor who was clearly sent to this. Was either sent to this, outpost later, or was there when everything went down. But I think she was sent there later to investigate what happened for the Alliance. And basically, on the recording, she says that the Alliance put this gas into the air that was supposed to make everyone docile, and it did. Except it did it to the point where people didn't even care about living anymore. They just kind of stopped breathing. But then in like 10% of the population, it had the complete opposite effect and made them made the Ravagers, basically.
Yeah, the Reavers. How is the Alliance like?
Reavers, sorry.
How is the Alliance like hiding all these, all this human experimentation that they're doing? They're doing this along multiple avenues, right? They have the sedative gas thing that they're using here. They have the psychic experiments that they're performing on River, and presumably other people who went to that school. Like, there's different lanes here.
I don't know. Look, I don't know. I mean, they clearly wiped Miranda off the map. It's a impossible, perhaps the archives are incomplete moment.
Let's just give a shout out and a hell yeah to Mr. Universe for seemingly knowing all of this information and sitting on it, leveraging it for a paycheck. Can't stop the signal. As long as you're I don't know, willing to pay or something like that. I assume he's running his operation for profit.
I mean, is he even running an operation? Is he just a criminal who just watches everybody's like news recordings? Like, we don't even know what he does.
We do know what Mal does at this point, though, which is that he provokes a swarm of Reavers into attacking the Alliance fleet that has amassed.
Well, don't skip over why he's doing this. He calls Mr. Universe because they, and before that even, we actually skip a lot of key scenes here before we get to that, where first Mal says, like, you all join me looking for a job, and like, I think the right thing to do is to get this recording out there. But if you guys think it's too dangerous or you don't want to, like, that's okay. We can drop you off and you don't have to join. And everybody says, like, wait, who are you kidding? Of course we're coming with.
They all leave.
They all leave. It's just Mal.
Yeah, Zoe deserts him after years.
And then they call Mr. Universe because he's the only one with the equipment to send this out to basically every broadcast system in the verse at once. And they know, obviously, that Mr. Universe, that the operative has found Mr. Universe, because, like, how would he not have? So they know they're basically walking into a trap. So Mal's absolutely insane plan is to attack the Reavers and have them chase Mal to where Mr. Universe is located. Chase Mal in Serenity.
Yeah. Well, we should actually mention that Mr. Universe is actually already dead by this point. They killed him.
Well, he's not when they call him.
Right,
we see them kill Mr. Universe.
Yeah, the operative is right by his side when he is talking to Mal. And then he dies. He gets killed with a sword. Wasn't that weird, man? Whatever he says.
Yeah, we should mention that Mr. Universe has set up they've set up that Mr. Universe has a sex bot.
Right. And he uses it to record this final message to Mel, which we're going to get to in a minute. Anyway, there's this big epic space battle. Looks really cool. Wash does his thing. Gets them through like a leaf on the wind.
And then he lands. The power goes out. They get hit by an EMP, so they're kind of free falling for a while. But then Mal is able to get enough of the backup power started to kind of scrape across the ground. And just as they stop, he goes, "I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I..." As he gets speared through the heart by a reaver.
Right.
And, they just kind of go, "Well, sucks to be Mal," and they leave the ship.
Sucks to be Mal, or sucks to be Wash?
Sorry, sucks to be Wash.
Yeah, I mean, she seems pretty broken up about it. The rest of them kind of do as well, but then they hole up.
Well, they all run off the ship, and they get into the base, and that's when Kaylee kind of goes, "Hey, where's Wash?" And Zoe says, "Wash ain't coming."
He's dead.
Well, she doesn't say he's dead.
I know she doesn't.
She just
say
says he ain't coming.
Yeah. I was just saying he's dead. He's in hell. Yeah, Reavers are on their tail. They're bottlenecking in. Mal goes in to spread the broadcast.
Yeah, he goes in and he finds Mr. Universe's dead body and he goes, "Dang it." But then the sex bot goes, "Hey, Mal, they killed me. They killed me with a sword. Isn't that pretty weird? Anyway, I have a backup unit. I know they missed it because nobody knows how to find it. It's pretty hard to get to. Good luck." It's down by the power. It's down by the reactor, basically.
It's among the nuclear waste I keep in my basement. Not really. It's just some sort of weird-ass generator thing underground.
And then, of course, the operative lands in, he just, in the middle of the space battle, just goes, "You know what? I'm out." And just launches himself out an escape pod.
Mm-hmm. Well, meanwhile, the rest of the crew is also dying. They're getting owned by the Reavers.
Yeah, they're taking bullets to the guts. They're taking spears. They're taking darts to the neck.
What? I don't remember that last part.
Oh, Kaylee gets darts to the neck.
Oh, really?
You don't remember that?
No.
Yeah. And that's actually why Simon needs his bag originally, was because the darts had some sort of poison in them that got injected straight into Kaylee's system.
Yeah. Surprised she actually made it out alive then. It sucks. Well, it doesn't suck that she made it out alive, but it sucks that it happened.
So they're getting destroyed by Reavers. There's a blast door that Kaylee says she can rig to basically not open after they close it, but they have to close it from the inside. So they get in and they close it, and it doesn't close all the way, and they're like, "Oh shoot!" And Kaylee's dying because of the poison, and Simon stands up. He said, "I need my bag," and gets shot. He's like, "I'm gonna die," and River's like, "No, Simon. You've protected me for so long. Now it's my turn." Which I just thought. Then she goes out and she goes beast mode and kills all the Reavers. And then I just go, wow, really sucks that everybody had to take bullet wounds, dart wounds, poison to the system, stab wounds. Everybody had to get absolutely annihilated before River decided to kill all the Reavers. Just thanks, River, thanks.
With the impression that she wouldn't have been able to do that if they weren't so backed into a corner or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Says the guy who also watched this movie where she just does it unprompted in a bar earlier.
Well, she wasn't unprompted. She was subliminally messaged into doing that.
Okay, she was triggered subliminally, but as if they couldn't just spend an extra 5 minutes while they're flying to Miranda or on Miranda to just go,
just triggering her subliminally. Just all right.
Maybe we should figure out the trigger words so that we can Simon knows that she was built as a weapon, and maybe he doesn't want to use that aspect of her, sure, but then nothing. But then still, I just think it's hilarious that like everybody had to basically go to the brink of death before River decided maybe I should actually do something here.
Well, it goes back to what they were saying at the beginning of the movie. I forget what it was, but the operative says like, there's some power they're tapping into. It's the power of love. It's stronger than something. I forget what the something was. So, maybe when she was activated to begin with, it was just some sort of, it was her subliminal, like, conditioning. But then this time it's like, it's the power of love or whatever, saving her brother, saving the rest of them. That makes her, apparently even stronger than when she was in the bar.
Yeah, maybe.
and just more ruthless, I guess. I don't know.
Meanwhile, the operative and Mal are fighting on the power plant. It feels like someone's about to do a Palpatine and go flying into the electrical system.
The operative seems to paralyze Mal in the same way he did at the beginning. But then Mal reveals that like he had lost like a nerve connection or something like that. It didn't work on him, and he comes out victorious.
He basically just jabs the operative in the throat, and he goes, and then he uses the man's sword to strap him into the fence so he can't move. And then he's like, I'm going to give you what you want. Watch this. And then he sends the message out to the whole verse. Can't stop the signal, man.
Seemingly this doesn't do too much damage to the Alliance, understandably. But, maybe helps get there or something like that. As we see at the end. Well, anyway, some of the operatives, like a platoon or men, bust in. And he tells them to stand down.
And then the operative helps them fix up Serenity. Helps Simon patch everybody up medically. And he says he'll try to convince the Parliament basically to leave Simon and River alone, and but that now they might come after them for like broadcasting the message. So
yeah, well, he says the damage has been done. Right, the message is out. There's no point in taking Simon and River into custody except for like revenge or something like that.
And it ends.
We get a little epilogue. We see Inara repainting Serenity. We see some of the other characters doing some other stuff. We see River's she takes up the mantle of Wash. We actually forgot. So at the end, Mal calls her an albatross here, and we actually didn't mention this, but there's like a million references to Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner throughout the entire thing, comparing River to the innocent albatross. The one who killing brings, like, they kill the albatross and it brings destruction on their ship because it was innocent and didn't deserve to die. So very on the nose here. But yeah.
Yep. And she immediately displays an aptitude for flying. So Mal is actually doing the flying. So I guess, we were talking about like, what does Mal even do? He can't do anything on the ship. Turns out Mal actually can do stuff on the ship. He was just even more of an alpha, that he was just ordering people to do things that he could have done himself, like pilot the ship.
He probably is just not as good at it as Wash was, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know. I'm just making the point that like we said the other week that like, what does Mal even do? He doesn't even have any skills on the ship except like being the boss, which that turns out to be false.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it ends on classic Firefly. Just ends on a sitcom note. After all of this, it's a pretty serious ending, and then you just see a part fly off the ship, and Mal goes, "What was that?"
Yeah, Mal goes, "What was that?"
It's actually interesting to me that, I guess just jumping into whatever here, it's actually interesting to me that there's no big speech or at least, back and forth dialogue about like belief when Mal is facing off against the operative, right? Like this whole thing seems to be building up to something related to that, but it's just not seemingly there.
I know that the whole movie is thematically building to that, and then it doesn't like stick the landing at all.
No. You get the Shepherd book, his dying words, one of the main characters, find something to believe, Mal. And
Yeah, and you have to think that like introducing the operative in this movie is the operative is a nameless guy. I mean, I don't know if we made this clear, but when the doctor asks him earlier, like, "What's your name?" he says, "I don't need a name, and I don't want one either. Like, I do what I'm told, and that's all that matters." And he is like clearly a counterpoint to Mal. He very strongly believes in the alliance, basically the point of not even questioning anything. The only hint at this like grand kind of belief confrontation between them is when Mal asks him earlier, like, "Do you not even question your orders? Like, do you not even wonder why they're sending you after us?" And he goes, "No."
yeah, I mean, so I guess it's like he actually lacks, personal beliefs or something like that. He just does whatever the job is. And you can actually see that as soon as Simon and River are no longer necessary to the Alliance, essentially, because the message is already out, like, he just goes like, "Yeah, all right, you guys are free to go. Whatever."
Good luck.
Yeah.
We also completely skipped over the funeral scene,
Oh,
or the
yeah.
like memorial scene.
The one we've been making fun of this entire time. So you see a scene at the end. You see 3 graves. Wash, who died tragically. Shepherd Book, who also died tragically. And then Mr. Universe, given equal weight with the other 2.
Well, he also died tragically.
He did, but
We just didn't really have as much attachment to him as a character.
exactly.
Yeah, well, Mr. Universe was the best character in this movie.
No.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not being serious.
No, I know. Well, speaking of like favorite characters, something we do want to do in a minute here. I think we have a little bit more to detail about Serenity itself, but we want to kind of look back at Firefly and discuss some of our favorite characters, what our favorite episode was, just a retrospective on the show. But yeah, we still have a few more things I think to touch on with Serenity, particularly.
I want to mention Jane's funny line when they're all getting shot at, and Zoe says something like, "Do you really think any of us are going to make it through this?" And Jane says, "Well, I might."
Yeah. I mean, Jane, like, I mean, we touched on this before, but let's just say it again. He gets harpooned through the leg, and he just walks it off. The way it's done seems like, he might have lost that leg or something.
Yeah, well,
That's Jane for
well,
you.
Jane's just a monster. Yeah, that's Jane for you. I just wanted to talk about how this movie really feels like a what could have happened, and part of that is like this operative shows up and watches this video of Simon breaking River out, and like the implication is that the way this is all set up is that happens very shortly after River gets broken out, and then very shortly after that he finds Mal. Like, it's kind of, to me, it's hard to reconcile the operative being sent to hunt down River and like the entire season's worth of adventures. I mean, I guess you could just say that like the Alliance got so desperate that they finally decided to send an operative out to find River, like after they escaped for like a year, but
Yeah, they do it.
that doesn't really feel like the way that this is
They
set
do
up.
actually give a time span in this movie. It's been a year since Simon and River and Book joined, if I remember correctly.
What was that? What it was, or was that just a year since Kaylee has had sex?
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes, like that's the line in which the context in which that line is delivered is when like they're kicking Simon and River off, and Kaylee says, "Dang, like if I had known they were gonna leave, like I would have made more of an effort because like it's been a year since I've had any sex."
Oh, so maybe it was like 2 weeks ago. Maybe all.
Yeah,
Maybe,
it could have been. It could have been. That line makes no reference to the fact that it's like been a year since Simon joined and she hasn't had sex. You know,
I could
like,
have sworn there was another mention of it being a year.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it looks like there's not. I'm just going through the script here. Yeah, it looks like that's it. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, like, what if the entire events of Firefly took place over the course of, like, 2 weeks or something?
Well, we know that the events of the season take place over at least 6 months because one of the episodes like implies that our Mrs. Reynolds.
Yeah.
What the second time that what's her name shows up states that our Mrs. Reynolds was like 6 months before.
Yeah, it was at least like 6 months.
God, look at us trying to figure out the Firefly timeline.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Honestly, any discrepancies that Serenity introduced didn't bother me whatsoever.
They didn't bother me. I just thought it was interesting the way that this movie feels almost like, yeah, I mean, just like a parallel universe or like a what could have happened or like another take on events. You know, that just felt very interesting to me. I mean, sure, you can reconcile it with the TV show as well. But for me, I like to think of it as like almost like a parallel timeline.
I mean, hey, the posters do make it look like the movie takes place in the Matrix or something, so.
Well, I mean, maybe it was just trying to capitalize on that Matrix hype right at the turn of the century.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think there's a few other special features that I kind of wanted to detail here, and I think we can go into our usual segments after that.
All right, take it away.
Well, I mentioned some of the deleted scenes already, but there were some I didn't mention, so I'll just briefly touch on what all of them were, I guess, in order. So at the beginning of them, these are deleted / like they're fully deleted scenes / parts of scenes that got cut. So at the beginning of the movie, there's more from River. She has a few lines as they're going out on the mule. There's a bit more when Jane is cleaning up when he's talking to Kaylee. The like one time Jane and Kaylee have interacted faced one-on-one in the entire show. There is a lot more. So, you know, when Mal is watching that video of Inara sort of clearly pining for her, it goes into an entire scene of what Inara has been doing. She's been on this companion school training companions. They drop the tidbit that maybe this is potentially why it got cut, but the companions start training at age 12, which is a massive WTF.
Yeah, that's a massive
similar. Yeah, I know. Like,
on Joss Whedon's part.
Take right there. Like, wait, what? Similar to the incest that was cut from our Mrs. Reynolds. Similar in like taboo nature or something like that.
You would think on a movie that somebody would read the script before he made it and would go, "Hey, Joss, you want to try that line again? Like before we start filming, maybe."
After the scene with River in the bar, it goes into what I was talking about before. It details Mal's backstory with the Battle of Serenity. So again, not only did that get cut from the show, it got cut from the movie. It just does. It couldn't. Mal's backstory couldn't catch a break.
There is a scene that we kind of glossed over, like when they're talking about keeping Simon and River on. The scene ends with Jane confronting Mal, and Mal goes, "Do you want to run this ship?" And Jane goes, "Yes." And Mal says, "Well, you can't because I'm in charge." And Jane says, "Yeah. Well, like, how does that work out for you? Like, how many people died at the Battle of Serenity Valley? Like, you and Zoe made it out, but how many other people did, huh?"
Right. And Zoe kind of shuts him down after he says that.
So he's like, "You don't want to continue this conversation, Jane. Like, leave now." And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of do want to leave."
Yeah, so it wasn't fully cut out. It was just, I think, you know, the idea is that it's kept more enigmatic. We don't really know the details. We do from the deleted scenes.
Yeah, it's less explicit.
Yep. There's another part of a scene that was deleted that we talked about before, which is Simon and River having full-on discussion about Miranda. What else is here? Oh, so the reunion with Book like gets a voiceover from Book, kind of like the show did. Weirdly enough. And that goes into
weird.
That goes into the scene where he's talking with Mal. So like that voiceover is him talking in that scene, but it's done as a voiceover as they're arriving on Haven, if that makes sense.
God, wouldn't it be so weird if they arrived and the whole movie just flipped to being like Book's point of view, and he goes, "And that was when Mal and the crew came to visit me.
And that's how we all, wound up here."
Wouldn't that be so weird?
Another one, like we mentioned before, an extended escape by Mal and Inara, and the distraction with the false grenade thing. There's another bit right after that where Inara's flying the shuttle. Apparently this was improvised. Like they didn't explain this, but like the scene selection thing said like parentheses improv. So it's like some banter between Inara and Mal on the shuttle. And apparently it was improvised. That's what I got out of it.
We also didn't mention that Inara decides to stay on Serenity at the end of the movie.
Imagine if Book in one of his scenes was like, I'm thinking of coming back to Serenity, and then just dies.
Imagine if the final scene of the movie is like they're having the memorial, and the shot kind of like zooms out, and on a nearby mountaintop, just watching over them, is Shepherd Book.
He's a Force ghost.
No, not even that. It's just the real Shepherd Book, unexplained how he survived, but he's just watching them like from another mountain. Or even better, they're painting up the ship. The operative guy goes,
"Oh my god!
Whoops, that's a
Doctor
slip."
Who.
The operative guy goes, "By the way, I found someone who wanted to see you." And Shepherd Book just walks up and goes, "How's it going, Mal?" And Mal's like, How did you survive?" And he goes, "Well, Mal, I know many things. I've learned many things in my time, including how to cheat death."
Yeah, or like, I don't know. There's a time for answers and there's a time for questions. Now is not the time for either, or something like that.
They could have done the power and the glory thing too, and just had it be a completely different Shepherd who's like
played by the same
actor. And Mal's just like, "Do I know you?" And the guy's like, "No, my name is Shepherd Calvin."
Shepherd like a scroll or something like that.
Shepherd Papyrus.
Anyway, there's a couple more deleted scenes.
Oh yeah, we're still talking about deleted scenes.
There's a conversation, a very awkward one between Mal and Inara, where she says that she's thinking of coming back, I believe. It's her in her shuttle. She's talking to Mal about something. I don't remember. It wasn't that important. And then there's a little bit more at the end where the operative muses on the name of Serenity. This is when he's talking to Mal at the end and it's raining. He's musing about the name of Serenity and the Battle of Serenity Valley and all this, and that got cut. So, oh well.
Oh well.
Another, pretty nice special feature, I guess, on the Blu-ray that we touched on earlier was the outtakes / bloopers. Most of them were just people flubbing lines, whatever, Nathan Fillion messing up scenes on purpose. The funniest one, though, was it was right as Mal was like was starting to like get hell-bent on disguising the ship. Everyone's dead on Haven and they don't know what to do, and he's sort of very severe in this moment. And Nathan Fillion just looks down at the ground and he goes, "I've seen so much death." And he just starts dancing. That was the only real notable one. What else here? There's a ton of special features, so this might take another couple minutes. But there's one where Joss Whedon details some of his, what he envisioned the backstory of Firefly being. This is never given in the show, so this is just, I guess, the backstory. So he gives some behind the scenes and some in-universe backstory. So he went on this 2-week vacation, and he read at one point before making Firefly, and he read this book called The Killer Angels, which I believe was about the American Civil War, and that's what kind of, planted the seeds of Firefly in his head. So it's pretty interesting, I guess.
Huh.
He says, in American fiction, people are not really too interested in what the winners have to say. So when it comes to something like the Civil War, people are more interested in the South. And he goes, thankfully Mal and Zoe weren't fighting for slavery, but this is something we wanted to detail. We wanted to make a show about the losers.
There's actually a line in this movie that references that when Mal, when they can't find out, how basically the Alliance hit a whole planet, and Mal says, half of writing history is just hiding the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So interesting.
He touches on more stuff that we already knew, how he envisioned Firefly about being, about people living out in space but not living in grandeur, about how society hasn't really changed even though people have moved off of Earth. He says that the idea behind the Chinese in the series is that, like, global superpowers, as people moved into space, basically the global superpowers just merged. But it's pretty interesting the way he describes it. He says, like, the cultures of the USA and China just merged into one, which doesn't seem to be the case on the show, but yeah.
Yeah, they don't lean into that as much as they could have.
No.
Or could do.
Yeah, and as it comes across on screen, it does seem like it's still just two separate cultures that have a lot of contact, so that, maybe sort of people who are obviously this, like, I don't know, Anglo-American descended culture thing, have bits and pieces, right? Everyone knows a little bit of Chinese type thing, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they could have leaned into that more heavily, I think, but There was another cool special feature thing. I'm not going to go too into detail with it. It was about the mule chase and how they created it. They wanted to keep, as a lot of filmmakers do, they wanted to keep things as practical as possible, so practical effects. They created an entire CG sequence of the scene just to envision it. And for some reason, it seemed like the CGI artists were surprised that, like, their rendition of the scene was heavily referenced and used in the final movie. It's like, all right, why did you think you guys were creating this? Like, just for fun? Just to blow some money? Like,
yeah, for the memes.
I know. Because one of the guys was like, it was so cool that we put this thing together, and then Joss looked at it, and he created his live-action version based on what we did, and was like, yeah, it seems perfectly clear to me, based on this 3-minute clip, that is exactly why you were asked to create this sequence. But whatever. More power to them, I guess. It's good that their work was used rather than the other way, or rather than the opposite. Again, there's another thing that we touched on at the beginning, which is how they revived the show and how that was linked to the fan response online and at conventions and stuff like this. And in that, I actually learned that Joss Whedon is a lefty.
Huh. Neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
There's some more extended scenes. This is weird. I wondered why they separated these from the earlier scenes, but there's like two different extended/deleted scene sections, so whatever. The scene with Fantee and Mingo was actually extended in the original, or it was cut. Part of it was cut. The message between Mal and Inara was also a lot longer, a lot more awkward, and I can see why they cut a lot of it out. It was just a very long, awkward conversation.
Hell yeah.
Some more was cut out that we mentioned before between Inara and the operative. And then, yeah. There's a lot. This is like one of the last ones. There's a little mini documentary thing about Jack Green. No relation to Dylan, probably. He was the cinematographer on the movie, and it was basically just Joss Whedon talking about how much he enjoyed working with him and how much their ideas meshed, and how Jack Green, like, his 3 kids, like, worked also as cinematographers with him. They had other roles. They weren't like the principal, they weren't main cinematographers for the movie, but they had other roles, but they worked as a team, basically. It was Jack Green's 3 children, so. And that's it.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that's all, folks. So do you want to hit our normal segments before we dive really into this retrospective thing? Such as the Western elements segment?
Yeah, I don't really know if there are very many Western elements in the movie, actually. The
No.
movie feels the most direct sci-fi out of the entire everything Firefly related.
Exactly. That's why if you're making a sci-fi movie, for God's sake, have a hovercraft chasing it. And this one did, and Firefly didn't, solidifying this as sci-fi and Firefly as not being sci-fi.
You said sci-fi so much it doesn't feel like words anymore.
One Western thing that I can think of is the bank robbery. That seems to be about it. And just the entire look of that town.
Yeah, that's true. The bank robbery, the bank job. That's that's pretty Western. But yeah, I don't see anything else that's very Western. Or I didn't see anything that was very Western.
Something that we do see, however, throughout the movie is the operative. Did you look him up? Because I just realized that I didn't.
Oh no.
He's played by... God, I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name.
It's okay, I got it. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Or Ejiofor. He's been in a couple things, 12 Years a Slave, The Man Who Fell to Earth, Doctor Strange and the Doctor Strange sequel, The Martian. Let's see if I recognize 2012. Wow.
Huh.
Yeah, it's most of the things that I recognize him in.
Well, alrighty then. Yeah, I mean, I knew I recognized him from other things as well. I just couldn't place him. I knew he was in Doctor. Yeah, I knew he was in Doctor Strange, which I've watched, unfortunately.
Why, unfortunately?
It's a superhero movie. It is okay among like Marvel movies. It is like one of the better ones. That doesn't make it even close to being decent, though.
I'm just nodding. You can't see, but I'm nodding. Well, what else? What else?
I didn't look up any other actors.
I don't think there was anybody else worth looking up, I guess, on you, unless you want to look up Sarah Paulson.
No, maybe the guy who played Mr. Universe, but, whatever. I'm not going to look him up.
Well.
Okay, fine. Let's look him up.
Confirmed I can guilt Keon into doing things.
Oh, God. Okay. Well. Yeah, so Mr. Universe was played by David Krumholtz. I'm just going off Wikipedia here, not IMDb, because I'm too lazy to click off to IMDb. He was in The Santa Claus. The one with, what's his face?
Tim Allen.
Yeah, Tim Allen. I almost said Tim Burton.
Same thing, right?
How to Kill Your Neighbor's Dog. That sounds like an interesting movie. He was in it. He was in The Santa Claus
dangerous.
2. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Let's see. Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny. Battle for Terra. Oh, he was in Superbad. Very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas. I didn't know they made all these Harold and Kumar movies around like the late aughts, early 10s.
Yeah, you just keep saying more Harold and Kumar movies, and I'm like, what?
He was in Sausage Party.
Oh yeah, banger of a movie.
He's been in a bunch of other things that I don't recognize. Oh, he has a television career as well. Law and Order, Chicago Suns, ER, Num 3ers, the show. Numbers.
Nice. Yes, I got that. I was about to say nice pronunciation.
Law and Order SVU, Key and Peele.
Oh yeah, we love Key and Peele.
The Interestings, interesting name there. He's in the new Twilight Zone, a bunch of other things as well. WWE Monday Night Raw this year.
Oh, great. Awesome. Feels like we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I think we should move on. We're gonna move on from that.
I'm just reading his intro on Wikipedia. He played in the series Numbers, whatever, and also starred in the Harold and Kumar and Santa Claus film franchises. The paragons of cinematic artistry. Anyway, what else do we have to cover? I don't think there's anything else before we move into our entire look back on Firefly and our Firefly retrospective.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying we should move on to.
Firefly. It's a good show.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Did it deserve a second season? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it now, I don't even remember what I thought when I first watched the show 7 years ago, but the way I look at it now isn't whether it deserved a second season or not, but it's like, I'm completely okay with what the show did in its one season and one movie. I don't think it really needs to be extended.
Yeah, I don't think any more Firefly would make it any better, or maybe would even necessarily be as good as the Firefly we have. We talked about this before, that expanding upon some of the mystique might actually make it worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And plus, I mean, I think the show just accomplished, what it, I guess what Joss Whedon wanted it to. I think it accomplished, a really solid season and a solid movie as well. And we've been ragging on Serenity and ragged on Firefly, but yeah, I think it's a good show.
I don't think we've ragged on the movie. I don't think we've ragged on Serenity that much. I don't think we ragged on it at all, really. We said a couple things about things we didn't like. I don't think we were as negative on it as some of the episodes of Firefly that we were kind of negative on, which I guess is a good kind of segue into talking about what is our favorite and least favorite Firefly episodes. Mm-hmm. And I guess we can include the film in this.
Yeah, and I would actually, just to preempt this, I would actually put Serenity, the movie, like on the lower end of that spectrum, to be honest.
I put it probably solidly in the middle. I think Out of Gas is still my favorite episode of Firefly.
Yeah, I would still say that it's that one or War Stories. Probably War Story, or not War Stories, The Message. Probably The Message. For reasons we talked about.
Just reading through the list here. Thinking probably Trash is my least favorite episode, actually.
Yep, same.
Looking back now, retrospectively, I think it's got to be Trash.
Really, it's not Shindig? You were so harsh on Shindig for the entire thing. Not harsh, but you just kept saying it was your least favorite.
I've softened my opinion on Shindig, even though I think it's definitely okay. You know what? Fine, I'll revise my statement. It's definitely between Trash and Shindig for me.
Yeah. Well, alrighty then.
So
yeah.
Shepherd Book, definitely my favorite character. Wish he was in it more. Wish he didn't die in the movie.
I know, yeah. I've been wondering this for like a day or two now, is Shepherd Book really my favorite Firefly character, or is the false idealization of Shepherd Book that we've built up in this, like, in the consciousness of the podcast, my favorite character? I think it's the latter. It
might be the latter, but also I just feel like he if there was a second season, they would have fleshed him out more. But as it stands, he's the most mysterious character, and I kind of like that. This is a show about space pirates, basically space bounty outlaws, and yet we know a lot of information about pretty much everybody except for Shepherd Book, and like the mystique there is what makes me kind of enjoy it, because he'll drop something that's in line with this mystique. He'll drop some sort of criminal knowledge, and you'll be like, what? But then like that's totally in line with everything we know about Shepherd Book, which is not much, but
yeah, there is definitely a mystique around him that makes him the best character.
So, and that was like, there was a lot of mystique around Mal, but that, I think, with the movie and with all the episodes, we've learned a lot about. And Simon and River, we got basically everything. Kaylee, Out of Gas gave us some information on pretty much everybody. I don't think there's anybody as mysterious as Shepherd Book.
No, and he serves as definitely a counterpoint to Mal, not only in that he's like sort of a mentor to him, but that he potentially has a similar criminal or like violence. His background is potentially as related to criminal activity and just violence and conflict and warfare as Mal is. We don't know, but it seems to be the case. But he came out of it. He's obviously older, and he came out of it, with this wisdom, right? Whereas Mal is obviously still dealing with the negative impacts.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with that, but I just scrolled past the cultural impact section of the Wikipedia page here. Apparently there are DVDs of Firefly on the International Space Station.
Well, that's weird.
NASA astronaut Steven Swanson is an ardent fan of the series and took the DVDs with him.
I guess you don't get streaming up there, so... God, imagine the dial-up for streaming you would get on the ISS.
One day there will be streaming services in
72p. That's 72p Firefly. Yeah, I'm glad we watched Firefly, even though I guess this is my final thoughts on this whole thing. I'm glad we watched Firefly, even though it is kind of a step removed from where we started this show. With British sci-fi, and we never even talked about any differences between this as an American sci-fi show and things like Star Cops and Blake Seven as kind of British sci-fi shows, perhaps maybe with similar premises.
Yeah, we didn't.
Which I don't think we necessarily need to, and I don't even know if it would be that much of an interesting talk to have, especially since Firefly is like so, one of the interesting things about Firefly is that it's so far removed from what sci-fi is normally on American television to begin with. Like we did compare this to Star Trek, and Star Trek is kind of the prototypical mold for what sci-fi looks like on an American television network, and compare that to like how far removed Firefly feels from that. Like comparing Firefly to Star Cops is like it's a fruitless endeavor, because Firefly is kind of more interested in being a Western than sci-fi almost. And maybe that's not true of every episode, and it's not true of Serenity, but is perhaps true on the whole, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because Joss Whedon, in one of the many interviews and talks he gave on the DVDs, on the Blu-ray specials, he goes, the interesting thing to me about sci-fi is that it's like looking at history and building. I think he says like building your own, but based on like picking and choosing kind of exactly what you want to touch on. So it is, for him, he's basically saying there, in maybe a roundabout way, but he's basically saying like, for me, the interesting thing about sci-fi is the building of a history for the world of it, and that completely tracks with what Firefly is.
Yeah. And it kind of tracks with exactly what he was doing with Firefly,
And in that sense, I think just the one season and the movie, like the show is completely successful at building that world. I know we said it didn't, could have leaned into the whole aspect of, American and Chinese culture merging or something like that. But like, I don't know. I think it was, I'm completely like satisfied or something like that with just the one season and the show.
Yeah, the one thing I wish they had done was explore that more. The melding of Chinese and American, or English speaking, actually. Let's not say American, English speaking cultures.
Well, Joss Whedon does say
in the universe.
He does say it's a melding of the U.S. and China. Like he says it specifically, just because I guess because they're the two world superpowers. But yeah,
but I'd rather look at what we actually see on screen rather than what Joss Whedon says, and I wouldn't say that the culture we see on screen is strictly USA on the English speaking side.
Yeah, maybe not. Seems pretty heavily to be. But maybe not.
I mean, yeah, but like Shindig, that whole thing with the duel and like the whole party, that was all very like old world European kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's also very like old West, like but not in the West. We talked about that on the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I kind of have nothing else to say.
Yeah, I don't think the last thing I wanted to say is Firefly may not be as removed from the premise of the podcast as we were saying, as we have been saying it is, in that like, obviously our wheelhouse mostly consists of British shows just because we have our Doctor Who podcast and that's been going for a long time. But it's like, the idea behind this podcast was to watch classic sci-fi, and I do think Firefly is a classic sci-fi show. It's definitely a cult classic.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Despite the fact that it's newer than most of what we've watched here.
I definitely think it's classic sci-fi, though.
I do, too. And, maybe it is, maybe in hindsight, looking back on Firefly and just kind of other things we've watched, Lex, I guess, even though we both hated it, is like, maybe we should venture outside. Maybe we should, or let me put it this way, maybe we should be less hesitant to venture outside what we normally watch, which is older British shows. Or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe. So obviously what you're saying is we should watch Cowboy Bebop to get yet another country's interpretation of sci-fi.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's not what we're actually doing next. What we're actually doing next, maybe some of you will have heard this on Trust Your Doctor. Our plan is to finally engage Operation Alternate Inevitable with Trust Your Doctor. So, Trust Your Doctor will have an episode going out on the New Year's special, Eve of the Daleks, sometime between January 1st and 8th. And then the week subsequent to that, we will be doing the 3-episode Childhood's End series that was aired on Sci-Fi in 2015.
Yeah, we're going to be watching those episode to episode, so we're not cramming them all into one thing. Even though it is only 3 episodes, it'll just be a 3-episode sim.
Yeah, and then after that, we haven't decided whether or not after that we'll do another season of Inevitable, another shorter show, or if we'll do a season of Trust Your Doctor and then come back to do a longer show on Inevitable. That's kind of up in the air, and we are open to suggestions from our audience.
Remember, if you're ever hesitant to suggest things to us about what we should do, just remember that we started an entire podcast because 3 people told us we should watch Blake 7.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of people telling us things, we have an email from Steven. Firefly episode 13, whatever the title was. Hey guys, on your discussion of Firefly episode 13, there was quite the Seinfeldian vibe with with I'm down and yada yada. Might as well also throw in Serenity now, Serenity now. I know you said nobody has said LOL pronouncing the actual letters aloud since 2004, but actually my college roommate in 2018 said it quite often whenever he found something to be funny. Bringing it back to the live-action Disney Channel universe, I've actually finally been watching Raven's Home, and it's a rather impressive continuation from That's So Raven. Has some really nice life lessons. Anyway, keep up the good work. Cheers, Stephen.
Damn, I'm LOLing at that.
Mamma mia. What have you done, Stephen?
You could say I'm lolling out loud.
Wow, that actually physically hurt me.
The
I took
mowing,
actual physical damage from that.
rolling on the floor, raffling, so to speak. Go ahead, AMA me anything. I'm here all night. Or for the next couple minutes at least.
I wish you weren't. You can email us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Firefly as a whole, and any thoughts on the upcoming Childhood's End season of Inevitable. Thanks everybody for listening along with us while we did Firefly, and if you want to leave a rating, you can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable, and you can find us on any podcasting platform at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And like we said, next time we're going to be back with a new season, Childhood's End. But in time, the end.